Well, a very good morning to you all. Hope you're well. I hope this is a successful day. I'm really sorry I can't be there with you today, but hopefully this podcast makes up for it somewhat. I know I've only got 10 minutes, so I better crack on. There's a lot to cover in the next 10 minutes. So my talk today is about the extraction of knowledge from email to aid in expertise discovery. This research started about 8-9 years ago with an undergrad project, MSc project, then finally ended up as an Eng doctorate piece of research. There's 5 main things I'd like to cover this morning. The challenge of trying to know who knows what within an organisation. Then can we utilise email communication in terms of extracting knowledge from email messages? Then we'll quickly spend some time looking at building the email knowledge extraction system, the complexities and where we're currently at, and then some issues to address. So even though we might have a system now, there are still many issues to be addressed which could be potential research projects in the future. And then finally the future, some interesting developments on what we've done so far involving the Welsh Assembly and the National Archives. So what is the main challenge? So from previous research we do know employees spend about 12% of their time searching for expert information to complete their work, and 60% of employees spend at least 1 hour per day duplicating work already done by others. So if we could develop a system that could reduce some of that time, that would inevitably increase employer productivity, but also would give us a nice academic challenge. So the next question is, where we started from, is can we actually utilise email communication and extract knowledge? So to do this we went to AstraZeneca and also some departments across the university to find out, do key phrases that represent an individual's knowledge actually exist within the email. So employees were actually asked to go through their email and say, do key phrases exist? So ACD is academic, IND at the bottom is industry. We know they do exist. 59% say they have key phrases from academia and 73% from industry. We then split them further. So general is the day-to-day key phrases you might use, which you do have expertise in, which aren't really the real gems of the email. And then the specific, as you can see on the right side, are the ones we're really interested in. So something that is quite unusual and maybe you or a few others have the expertise within the organisation. Further, they're broken down into basic knowledge, general knowledge and expert knowledge. So from this initial research we could see there was a possibility that if we could extract key phrases, they would be of use to the organisation. The problem is the key phrase extraction techniques used currently are great on large volumes of text, but trying to apply them to just a paragraph causes lots of different problems, in that you can't get key phrases from a short paragraph. So we went through lots of generations of email knowledge extraction, the system we were trying to develop, but they're all based around the parts of speech tagger, which is here in the middle. But rather than go through this diagram in detail, it's probably easier to show you in practice on the next slide. And this is what it looks like. So you obtain the email, the first bit at the very top. You then or the system actually tokenizes the text. So every word, comma, semicolon is tokenized within the text. Then we apply the parts of speech tagger. So it's trying to work out the semantics, the meaning of the words, the relationship of the words within the sentence. Then the system, through lots of training, will pick out the key phrases within each candidate phrase. So we've got that pretty much near the bottom, which you can see lots of key phrases have been extracted, which is not necessarily good. But then you can apply a linguistic filter to further reduce the key phrases extracted, which we did do later on. We looked at lots of different natural language processing systems, like Zakia and Genex. Not great because you actually have to specify the number of key phrases you want to extract up front. So some emails won't have any key phrases, and some emails might have 4, 5, 6 key phrases. So we ditched those two systems and then went for the natural language toolkit supplied by Python. and we created a Brill tagger which took several months to train, and then embedded it within our system. What we wanted to do is work out how good the system actually is, and we went for the F measure, which I'm sure you've heard about, looking at precision recall to make sure we're getting good precision and we're not getting much back. We then had to create golden data for the emails, or rather the employees of the emails we looked at created the golden data, so they would go through the emails and say if they were to pick out key phrases, what would they look like, and then we say if the system came back with this, would that be a match. So we've got word net relation, the system selects, technique suggests word net relation spot on. If it said word net relation, it came back with relation, we're saying that's no good. So we're trying to organise or determine the golden standard to see what the F measure would come out like. The results were really encouraging when we tried the system on 3 different organisations or 3 different data sets. The F measure at the highest at AstraZeneca was coming out at 61.3, the lowest 44.8, which was Enron and was not a great data set to use. But the good thing is we're still world leaders in the F measure for the system, so no one else is anywhere near close to the F measure we're getting currently with this system. We weren't really happy with the F measure as it was, so we did try and improve it even further, and we introduced WordNet. Now I've got a screenshot of WordNet here, which you've probably come across before. We wanted to use WordNet in that if the system extracts a key phrase and it is in WordNet, it's probably going to be quite a common word, so we want to not use that word and only use the words that aren't stored in WordNet. Now the results show a vast improvement with WordNet, so you can see the grey column on the right hand side, the F measure 60.1 for Corpus 1, 71.8 for Corpus 2, and Corpus 3 48.1. So a dramatic improvement by using WordNet to try and filter out some key phrases. So what does the current EEC system look like? Well, here is a screenshot. On the left hand side you've got the client, on the right you have an EEC server. It's an add-in we've created that goes into Outlook, so every time you send an email the system will pass through your message, and if there aren't any key phrases, the email is sent. If there are key phrases, it will come back and say, please can you rank these key phrases. We determined that having system standalone and not have any user interaction wasn't brilliant, so we did need some sort of user interaction, and we wanted the users to validate the key phrases that are extracted. So when you first run the system for the first 2 weeks, it is a bit of a pain in the backside, but after that it starts to settle down and you don't get too many interruptions from the emails you actually send. So just to give you a real life example, this is an email that you'd send. This is what it would come back. The system would come back, say, right, it's pulled out pilot study, do you have a basic knowledge, working knowledge or expert knowledge? You would then mark that or say not applicable. It would then go into database which the organisation could search. It was quite interesting once you had all these key phrases within the database, as you could start to see a profile of the sort of areas that you worked in. So it was really quite useful. The system also learns, so if you say it's not applicable, it won't ever come back into play, that key phrase. So it does learn as it goes. What next? Quite a few things really. There's a number of issues to address if you're using it within the organisation, potential system problems, self-assessment. As we probably know in organisations, there are people out there that think they really are experts when they're not, and there are people out there that don't think they're experts and they really are. So self-assessment could be a problem. If you say you're an expert, will you be overwhelmed by queries? And if you are, would you then stop populating the database because you don't want too many queries, which could cause a slight problem. The other problem is determining the context. So we have Susie and Fred here. Hi Tony, use the compound approach. Fred says, Mary, the outcome depends on the compound you use. Both use the word compound and equal pull out compound for both. The issue we have here is Susie talking about accounts in terms of compound, and Fred is talking about chemical compound. So ideally you want some sort of ontology, but trying to create an ontology for the whole organisation is extremely difficult. Many benefits, we think. You can monitor change within the organisation, so gaps in organisational knowledge, maybe identify training requirements, highlighting changing business, so you're moving into new areas. You can also, most importantly, which we set out to do, is who knows what within the organisation, and maybe there needs to be some sort of financial reward for sharing knowledge. I know in AstraZeneca they use knowledge miles, which seem to work relatively well. Here's a graph just showing some of the key phrases that have been extracted from AstraZeneca. So you can see liver function test is very popular around May and June, and the common cold, talking about that, is popular in January and maybe in December. So within an organisation you can start to see the key phrases that are used in certain times of the year. So looking towards the future, and whistle stop tour, in my direction of research, I think I'm moving, and this particular research, moving from knowledge management more into Anne O'Brien's area of information organisation and retrieval, in terms of the research we've been asked to do for the Welsh Assembly. So the Welsh Assembly have email vaults, and the problem is they also have retention policies, but they have all these millions of emails, but they need to be able to classify and categorise each of those emails. So what we're looking to do is re-engineer EEC to try and help automate that process. So it's going to involve codifying the retention policy and trying to determine the context of the emails, which is going to be quite tricky to do, but hopefully we're advertising for a PhD student now, and this will start in October, and the Welsh Assembly are going to half fund a PhD student. This also is in connection with the National Archives, who are very interested in the outcome of this, and if successful they plan to roll it out to the councils throughout the UK and also government agencies. So in summary, we looked at the challenge, looked at can we utilise email communication. Well, yes we can. We've looked at the system that we've built, and the F measure, which seems to be very good, but there's still many issues to address, lots more research issues to address, but it looks like we might be moving in a slightly different direction in terms of the Welsh Assembly. So once again, I hope you enjoy your day, and thank you very much for listening. Hope you haven't fallen asleep, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye bye.